4 corrupt, politically motivated prosecutors, one target, Donald Trump. They say they're upholding the law, but a close examination reveals politics of the very worst kind meant to influence the 2024 election. Investigations unprecedented in American history, part of a broader attempt to silence and penalize a president who challenged the status quo.
You have 4 or 5 different prosecutions in different form on different highly aggressive theories and applications of the law. On the eve of an election of the President of the United States, can there be any doubt that there's a sentiment of this is get Trump? Get Trump.
These prosecutions against President Trump, both the criminal prosecution along with the civil fraud prosecution, is blatant election interference. It's Democrat lawfare to take out President Trump. They fear that they can't beat Trump on November 5th, 2024. And so they just want to throw him in prison for the rest of his life.
Do you have any doubt whatsoever what all these cases are about? Do you realize at this point, there's no longer any reason to look at polls? There's only one reason that all of these lawsuits are even happening. It's because they know that Dementia Joe cannot beat Donald Trump. And unfortunately for the people in the White House, more and more Americans are beginning to see the light. All of our internal BS meters have been pinging for quite some time. And now, after Letitia James and Fani Willis have openly embarrassed themselves, the entire corrupt machine is about to crumble. Let me show you a recent story in the New York Post. This story was printed in the New York Post yesterday, actually April 7th, and it was by the editorial board, not even just one of the authors. The actual editorial board put this article up. Letitia James nitpicking over Trump bond is more spiteful nonsense. They just said that the Attorney General for the state of New York is being spiteful. Let's continue. I've got a few paragraphs highlighted for you here. I love how they worded this. The state attorney general, Letitia James, believes her only job is to attack Donald Trump. It seems so. Now she's going after the ex-president for posting the bond on the $454 million civil fraud judgment she won against him in February, the step that he must take in order to appeal. It's not over. It's going to the appellate court, but she's trying to stop him from even seek his appeal. Last week, Trump posted the $170 million bond provided by Knight Specialty Insurance Company to temporarily prevent Letitia James from snatching up Trump Tower and other assets. An outcome she's been raring for since the judgment was passed down. She's way too enthusiastic about taking this guy's properties. She's not getting them, but that's another story. While he continues to fight things out in the appellate court. Goes on to say, and this is where it starts getting really good, it's not good enough for Tish. She doesn't care that this company put up the bond money for Donald Trump. She doesn't want anybody getting involved in this case, and she's going to seek to embarrass and destroy your company if you get behind Donald Trump. On Thursday, the AG's office filed paperwork demanding that Trump or the insurer prove within 10 days that they can make good on the bond, claiming that the state took, quote, exception to the sufficiency of the surety provided by Trump. This does nothing except gum up the appeals process and make Trump jump through more legal hoops, all for a civil case without a single victim. A $454 million judgment without there being one single victim. It's absurd. Remember, this is about whether Trump overvalued assets to acquire loans that he paid back in full. Now understand, everybody, you, me, your parents, everybody who's ever bought any property and has needed a mortgage to purchase that property has had to fill out form after form after form. Doesn't matter what you put on that form, the bank, the mortgage broker, everybody is going to do their own due diligence to see if the loan is worthy enough for them to get involved in. They're not going to take your word for it. Now imagine that on a skyscraper in Manhattan. Like it says here, loans from perfectly competent bankers who knew perfectly well what they need to do to complete their own due diligence before handing Trump a dime. and they did that. James insists she's very confident Trump's appeal will fail. Don't know how she can be confident other than the fact that it's in New York, but she seems very worried that a competent appellate court will reveal her prosecution for what it was: a contrived attempt to get Trump. That's all it was. A contrived attempt to get Trump. That's the objective, pure and simple. And as the article continues here, it says, and doing that by dragging lawfare into the gutter, which she obviously has. This is my best part. I love this part here. Tish, I love that they called her Tish, has become the Wile E. Coyote to Trump's Roadrunner. If you've ever seen a Roadrunner cartoon, you know exactly what they're talking about. Setting up harebrained traps and decoys to sabotage the former president and making New York's legal system look like a joke in the process. We are all laughing at what Letitia James has done with the New York legal process. It is an absolute joke. Businesses are leaving New York City as fast as they can. If this verdict stands, and they're giving her an admonition here, everyone thinking of doing business in the Empire State has to take into account that the risk that politicians can stretch law to destroy them. A message sure to drive investment elsewhere. Yeah, they're coming to Florida. A lot of them are coming to Florida. I see it every single day. Every New Yorker will pay for James' headline hunting ambition. That last line says it all. Every New Yorker will end up paying for what Letitia James has been doing. The New York Post is a huge media outlet. Remember, this is the same newspaper that broke the story on Hunter's laptop and then got squashed by Twitter 1.0 with the help of the United States government. And now they're breaking stories about Letitia James and her spiteful, desperate attempts to keep this fantasy lawsuit going before it gets blown up in the appellate court and eventually the Supreme Court if the appellate court doesn't do the right thing. And it's inevitable that this thing will blow up. There were no victims, a victimless crime. You cannot charge somebody and then fine them $454 million on a fraud where there was nobody who had the fraud perpetuated on them. You can basically say right now that the fuse has already been lit. It's just a matter of time before Letitia James sees her entire case blow up in her face. Then, similarly, down in Georgia, you see Fani Willis's case about to do the same thing. It's about to implode all over Fanny's dress. It's just a nightmare with what's going on in Georgia. Today, this story dropped. Harrison Floyd, one of the co-defendants in Fanny's case, has just filed an action because he found out that Fani Willis did an illegal wiretap on his phones. Fani Willis tapped the dude's phones. This is getting crazy. Check this out.
Last week, my attorney and I made it public that District Attorney Willis very likely violated the Maryland Wiretapping Act, which is a felony here in Maryland. As far as we are aware, DA Willis did not have a warrant, and the call was not made in furtherance of law enforcement because I was already in custody. She simply broke the law.
Now, think about what he just said. This isn't a civil case. This is a criminal case. He is filing a complaint against the DA in Fulton County, Georgia, on a felony criminal allegation. That's huge.
The truth is, DA Willis did not like the public backlash she was receiving, and over the course of multiple calls, she tried to find a way out of the mess that she created. She also made the claim that I denied a consent bond, which is a lie. The truth is simple and quite frankly sad. DA Willis is blinded by her upbringing, which was deeply rooted in radical progressive ideology and racism. She has no problem weaponizing her skin or her office to further its aims.
She has said that many times, as you know, in the famous or infamous church speech. Hey man, they're just going after me because I'm a black woman. All the time, she just relies on racism, which is pretty much, par for the course of the left.
While my skin is also black, DA Willis identifies me as white and views me as a defender of white supremacists due to my political beliefs.
I've been accused as well. I don't know how, but I've also been accused of being a, quote, white supremacist. Good luck with that.
Deep down, she wants to make me pay for what she feels is a betrayal to black culture. Her words and actions consistently demonstrate a hate for white people and a need to make this case about race. She has disrespected Judge McAfee and defense attorneys because of the color of their skin. It's racist and it's wrong. After my attorneys finish working on the appeal Judge McAfee granted, we will bring a motion asking the court to exercise its judicial power on equal protection grounds.
Boom. That means Fani goes bye-bye. So this judge, we don't know how he'll rule, but the fact that this is being brought up is just another problem for Fani on the appellate side.
Because racism in any form is wrong. I, along with a lot of you, would like a speedy resolution. However, this is more than likely going to take time due to the district attorney's unprofessional, overly aggressive, and untruthful nature. Let me be clear that this is not an effort to delay justice or attack the district attorney because of her race or sex. It's because she actually broke the law in the same manner she's falsely accusing me of.
Just let that sink in. You know, all the other stuff that's been said about Fani Willis and people calling her Big Fanny and everything else and attacking the way she dresses. This is a criminal complaint that's being alleged. A felonious criminal complaint against the district attorney. This is a big deal.
Thank you, and I will see you back in Georgia.
It's just a matter of time before all these cases get detonated and blown into oblivion. Here's another story that ran today, recapping what's going on. It ran on Fox, and I just found this to be very interesting.
So Donald Trump was able to post a $175 million bond. He did it with a bond agency. Now AG Letitia James says the agency that wrote the bond for Trump is not qualified to do so. So she's reportedly beginning the process of claiming Trump's properties. Is this ever going to end?
Well, I'm going to call this an administrative or bureaucratic technicality that's going to have to be worked out. It does appear as though the bond company doesn't have all of the requirements necessary in terms of what they provide to the state of New York. I believe that's something they're going to be able to work out.
Forgive me for interrupting.
Sure.
It's not that they don't have the money, though, right?
Right. Well, it's not just the money. It's additional money on top of it as the surety for that money. So there has to be certain requirements that are satisfied in the state of New York. I believe this company comes out of California. I think that as they work that out, the court is going to have tolerance for Donald Trump working that out to make sure.
Now, of course they are. We're talking about $175 million. We're talking about a $454 million judgment. Of course, his due process is going to require the court to say, pump the brakes. You know, we need to make sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted. We need to give this defendant the same amount of latitude we give anybody else, and it's going to make, Letitia's hair go on fire. This is what has to happen in this legal process. It's all about to blow up because she's trying to, as the New York Post said, nitpick, just completely look at every single thing just to try and get Trump. Gotta get Trump. Not doing anything in the interest of the citizens of New York.
Sure that that's done appropriately. I don't see a building getting seized in the meantime.
Now, we can't dismiss egos in all this because Letitia James ran on the basis of her going after Trump. She said she was going to pursue him until she got him in jail, etc. She lost hugely with that appeals court that reduced that initial fine that the judge who was working with her pulled out of the air, $454 million, reduced it by about 2/3. Is this her way of getting some kind of payback after that loss?
Well, I think that took the wind out of her sails.
That took the wind out of her sails. As soon as I heard that, that just made everything just come clear. It's obvious at this point what this is all about. She's trying to hold back the water at this point. Same thing with Fani down in Georgia. They're trying to hold this thing at bay, keep it from just basically being a flood, wiping out everything that they've tried to do. It is inevitable. They never expected Donald Trump. For some reason, I don't know how you could underestimate an opponent like Donald Trump, but they have obviously underestimated him. They didn't think he would fight back with such aggressive tenacity to make sure that he was able to continue his campaign for the presidency. Remember, this whole thing was just to knock him out. They know Dementia Joe can't compete with Donald Trump. And so their sole focus here was to knock him out. And they don't know what to do at this point because everything is basically collapsing around them and embarrassing them. Let's continue with what this man has to say.
You know, it seems as though she's desperate to move into one of these buildings. Maybe she should just fill out an application for rent in one of those buildings. But she wants in, and I think she wants to be able to get that victory before the election. It's going to be...
That's what it's all about. Trying to get a victory before the election, try to stain Trump, try to get his voters to move off of him.
Very difficult for her to do so because I think the appellate court is going to take its time and they're going to have to go through all of these calculations. This is a huge case for them to get a decision before the election.
So the same appellate court that handed her a defeat in terms of bringing down that bond so much is now going to be deciding on this issue of whether the bond agency can be used.
Well, I believe the bond issue is actually going down to the trial court level.
Okay.
That's a technicality that I'd have to dig a little deeper into. But that's an initial issue. Ultimately, the appellate court's going to be deciding the big issues. And that's what Donald Trump's team has already gone to the appellate court with. They've already filed papers that suggest that there are very strong arguments on many issues to include the calculation of the damages, if not the actual findings by the court in the first place. So,
and that's huge. The guy said that Mar-a-Lago was, you know the story. I don't have to keep rehashing it. It's completely nuts. It makes no sense to anybody anywhere other than people who are out to get Trump. There's no other explanation.
A huge case they've got to get through.
There's another case that's a big mess, and that's Fani Willis, the RICO case for the election fraud issue down in Georgia. She's going through yet another set of circumstances, right? The judge wants to gag her.
The judge
he definitely should gag her. You know, think about that. A district attorney being gagged, and the prosecutor being told, shut up.
Well, the defense teams are going to file a motion to gag her. She continues to make public statements. Now, if you'll remember in the judge's decision on the disqualification issue, in which she was kept on the case, but Nathan Wade was kicked off the case, the judge made a comment about gagging her, that motion wasn't before the court, but the judge was very critical of the public statements she made.
The ones in church where she blamed her race on the problems that she's had.
And he called them inappropriate. So
And they were inappropriate. Number one, how do you make that kind of statement up in the pulpit, talking about a lawsuit, a criminal lawsuit that you're working on, and you're saying that you're the victim, and you're saying that up in a church? Never mind a speech in your office, interview with the news. You did that in a church. It was completely inappropriate.
Ready, I think, to issue a gag order. He just needs a motion before the court to do so.
Will any of these cases, and of course we haven't even talked about Jack Smith, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, but will any of these cases go to court before the election?
Well, we have the New York case scheduled to start next Monday. Now, there are ways that Donald Trump could try to avoid that, including firing his defense team. It's also a very strong case. So I think he may have interest in going to trial next week.
So just imagine this. Just imagine that Donald Trump goes to trial. And understand, these cases are just giving him tons of free publicity. At this point, the media's caught themselves in a bind. We don't want to let Trump talk. Every single day, once this case starts on April 15th, we're going to have to show what's going on. So he's going to be in the media, much more so than Dementia Joe, who will be holed up hiding someplace. So it's going to be in your face everywhere, and it's embarrassing as this stuff unfolds. Can you imagine the judge on national television gagging the prosecutor in Georgia? That would be amazing to see, which I'm going to talk about if it happens. But I've never seen a prosecutor gagged. You know, they're all saying that Trump should be gagged and not talk. Yet they run to the media, especially to MSNBC, and they say whatever they want. She jumps in a church. Racism. I'm going to get this guy. You can talk all you want, but you can't have the defendant talk. That's not even equitable in any way, shape, or form. So now the judge is probably going to, especially with the allegation of the wiretapping, is probably going to gag Fani Willis. The powers that be have spent tens of millions of dollars to get Trump. They needed these lawsuits to remove Trump from the race. They needed these lawsuits to get Trump supporters to turn their back on him. Not only has it not worked, they have actually strengthened the support for Donald Trump. But we know they won't stop. They can't stop. They have no choice at this point. They know, just as we know, that old fart sitting in the White House can't beat Donald Trump. Next week, supposedly, the New York trial begins. Get your popcorn ready. Before I go, I have a question for you guys. I want you to answer me in the comments. In your circles of family, friends, co-workers, are you seeing support for Trump increase or decrease? I'd love to know what you're seeing. It will be very interesting if you're experiencing the same thing I am by seeing a lot of people who wouldn't normally go public go, yeah, I'm for Trump. Talk to you soon. Let me know in the comments. Can't wait to see what happens in the next couple weeks.